Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this very important conference. We just heard also now from our leader how important it is, and it's a privilege and an honor for me to be here with you today. I have been working with the subject of women and science first and foremost as a politician, and not least in my 10 years in the European Parliament from 2004 to 2014, where I was a member on both the Committee of Science as well as a Committee of Women's Rights and Gender Equality. I also had the privilege to draw up a report on the European Parliament's input to the Commission on the role of women in science back in 2008. Though gender equalities in research and innovation persist in the European Union, the publication's C figures show that some progress has been made. But even with a number of 50% PhD female students in Europe, why so few become researchers and even fewer full professors or rectors? For instance, although we cannot expect all PhD graduates, of course, to join research, there is a clear gender imbalance with fewer female than male PhD graduates embracing a career in research. In 2012, in the EU, women already represented 46% of the PhD graduates, and this year has been about 40% for a long time. However, women are only represented by 33% of researchers, and the increase towards this balance is very, very slow. Furthermore, too few women are in leadership positions or involved in decision-making in research. Only 20% of top-level academics are women, and just 1 in 10 universities in the European Union has a female rector. The figures also underline the wide differences across Europe, because Europe is not one entity concerning women's position on the labor market in general, both in decision-making positions as well as in research, not least in the STEM area. For instance, the number of female researchers in Portugal in 2015 is 67%, while in Germany is less than 20%. So these differences are due to many factors such as history, economic structure, culture, and tradition, and we need more knowledge to see how we can use the different situation and the best practice. I will return to that later. But the European Union's policy of gender equality has traditionally been taken forward by what we call the European Commission in Brussels, that functions as a kind of ministry. They already in 1999 adopted an action plan which also included a coherent approach towards promoting women in research. And the objective was to achieve at least 40% representation. Even that the number of female researchers at this time only was 30%. And there has been a steady decrease in female participation in these entities where the Commission itself has strong influence. And it shows that when we take a decision, we can do something and promote. So the number of women in expert panels, evaluation panels, advisory groups, and so on has gone from 10% in 1994 till 40% in 2014. But this is within the European Commission, because when we see the participation in the European research project, then it's only 25%, because this is up to the member state how they want to support female researchers, and this is not like the Commission has done. One important tool to promote equality in practice between men and women in research and innovation has been embedded in the gender dimension in science, research and innovation program. One important tool was the creation of the famous Helsinki group. This is a group that brings together representatives from member states. And it was established in November 1999 as part of this whole action plan to promote gender. And this Helsinki group, they had as a mandate where they should bring forward equality between women and men in the field of research and innovation in Europe. And it is very interesting to see how such a network really had contributed to the science policy in Europe, taken from the European Commission to the member state, and from the member state to the to EU, and spread and divided the knowledge. For instance, in 2006, the most advanced gender legislation was passed by the Spanish government. And this legislation was taken to Brussels and shared by the other members of the Helsinki group. And this process spread it out in the whole of Europe. And I think it's such a good example of how sharing knowledge is very important, and working in networks. It was also my own experience as a parliamentarian that sharing knowledge of best practice among the member states was what was very important. The Helsinki group also gathered support from the women's organizations in the member states, and with effort of this organization, one was Portia, Elizabeth, your organization, they helped to ensure that gender was included in the big research program, Horizon 2020, as a criterion of success. They organized a lot of hearings and meetings in the parliament, and also the group of researchers from Stanford, we heard yesterday, and Canada, that developed the new concept of gender innovation, participated. So we succeeded in the parliament to pass this legislation with a very famous Article 15 that says that Horizon 2020 shall ensure the effective promotion of gender equality and gender dimension in research and innovation content. Particular attention shall be paid to ensuring gender balance, subject to the situation in the field. Of course, if there are 90% female or male researchers, then it should be reflected in the evaluation panels. And then the gender dimension, and this is a new, shall be adequately integrated in research and innovation content in strategies, programs, and projects, and follow through all stages of the research cycle. This is the EU legislation on the Horizon 2020. Of course, it's not a lot of money, because the EU budget is 1% of the GDP in each member state. And 10% of this 1% is the research project. And this is in total 80 billion euro that we can apply for, and you can apply, because EU has a program specific for Korea. So this you can research and see which possibility there is. But this was not the only thing. Also part of the legislation for the part of the program called Science with and for Society, we got a text into the legislation saying that we should promote gender equality, in particular supporting structural changes in the organization of research institutions and in the content and design of research activities. So it means that we were aware that it's the way we should promote women was also to change the structures. This achievement we have achieved through the network, the Women Network in Europe, the Helsinki Network, Portia, and all the other networks. And the Commission has supported different kinds of network during the time, also European Platform of Women Scientists, Euroscience Opens Forum, that also gather in their conferences women research groups. So they had a huge impact on the gender and science policy in Europe, and I believe that cross-country networking is the way forward to improve the role of female scientists. As I said in the beginning of my speech, there are wide differences across the member states concerning the position of women in science, and the next step, I think, is that now we need to set up projects where we can share why are there such huge differences. It's not only in Europe, I can see it's also in Asia, from the statistics that there are more female researchers in Philippines than in Japan. What are the barriers? Because today we think that barriers, oh, it's something with childcare. But in my country, Denmark, we have full childcare. We have even full elderly care from the public system because we have a welfare state, a Nordic welfare state. But anyway, we have less than EU average of female researchers. So we need to explore why are the countries like Portugal, Bulgaria, and Latvia, some of the poorest countries in Europe, why do they have the highest number of female researchers, while the number of female researchers in rich countries like Germany, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg is the lowest in Europe? And why are 40% of the mechanical engineers in Portugal women, while it's only 5% in Denmark? During my time in Brussels, I just came across one project that looked into culturally and historically formed differences in gendered career paths in physics, and how career paths of male and female physicists are conditioned by these cultural patterns, and how male and female physicists are given different conditions for developing as scientists in relation to a number of themes such as time management, family life, work, workplace identity, selection mechanism, creativity, and hierarchy. The results show a high variation in relation to the number of women employed at physics institutions. The most industrial countries had the lowest percentage of female staff. And it's interesting because our representative from Uganda said 2 days ago that they had such a small space for research of physics, and therefore there should be made place for women. But here, the 10 countries with largest physics faculties in the world, including the 3 Mediterranean countries, Portugal, Italy, and Turkey, 3 Asian countries, Philippines, Thailand, and China, 3 Eastern countries, Hungary, Russia, and Poland, and also Brazil. They have not the largest, but they have women. There are women physicists in these countries, while where they have the large establishment, high level of industrial development, and strong women rights movement, they have the 6 of the 10 countries with smallest female physics faculties percentage: Canada, Germany, Norway, US, UK, and the Netherlands. And they have very few women in this area, and this is the same in the other STEM area. And I think this is something we should have the networks to look upon. Why are the barriers in one country and not in another? Because we can talk about gendered innovation, but if there are no women in an area, how can we make gendered innovation? And therefore, I finally would like to touch upon the ICT sector. When I ask young people today in the Copenhagen Business School, what is important right now? They answer me, big data. Big data is the future. But there are so few women in the ICT sector that it's a question now, I think, about democracy. We have only one country in Europe where women and men are equalized, and we don't know why in ICT, and this is Romania. So Danish enterprises are dealing with these Romanian women. But what about all the other countries? I can see in Asia, Philippines and Malaysia, they are also advanced in women and ICT. Since 1983, the number of women in ICT has gone down. And if it all other areas, physics, engineering, whatever, it's gone up. Slowly, faster, but it has gone up. ICT, it has gone down every year. And in 2032, there will be no women in the ICT business. Okay, yeah, I think the time has gone. Yeah, okay, yeah. So I think this is really a political problem. that and there will be lacking manpower in that sector. And women, I feel they are kept out, but this should be investigated better. Anyway, gender equality and mainstreaming in research yes, and you can also see the differences. Can we just go one slide back? Here you can see the differences that in Portugal, being in natural science is not so prestigeful as being in humanities. So therefore there are more female professors. And this is a very interesting cultural difference, I think. Let's have the last slide. Well, I will finish. I just want to say I found this press release, and I'm very happy that the gender committee in the parliament have said it has to be now. We have to go for it, break the glass ceiling, and the Luxembourg presidency. Luxembourg, the country in Europe with less women, they have the presidency now in the EU. Each half a year a country has a presidency. Now it's Luxembourg. And they want to make real progress in achieving better balance between men and women. And I think this is a very important message that we have to keep in mind. Thank you very much for listening.